World Breastfeeding Protection Day program jointly organized by IAP Thiruvananthapuram branch and NNF Thiruvananthapuram. This year's theme is compelling enforcement of the IMS Act in India. Today we have a panel discussion on the topic, does IMS Act in India serve its purpose? And first I invite IAP Kerala President Jayaraman sir for the presidential address.
Good evening, everybody. Respected President of IAP, Dr. Santosh, Secretary Dr. Praveen, Dr. PMC Nair sir, Dr. George F. Moolayil, Dr. A.K. Rawat and Dr. Praveen Kumar, Dr. Elizabeth Madam, Dr. Kristin Indumathi, all the other dignitaries on the platform. This is actually we are having the 4th program in connection with the Breastfeeding Protection Day, May 21st. And as you know, this is mainly for the protection of breastfeeding, and the most important thing the Government of India has done for the welfare of infants on this regard is the Infant Milk Substitutes Feeding Bottle and Infant Food Act of 1992, which came into being in the year 1993 and later amended in the year 2003. This is the basic problem of infant food marketing, and actually this rule bans the promotion of infant food and breast milk substitutes to be being promoted less than 2 years, and so also all sort of sponsorships and advertisements in marketing these infant foods and bottle feeds and substitutes. Actually, Section 21 of this Act empowers 4 NGOs as well as Government of India agencies and food safety officials, designated agencies, in monitoring the implementation of this Act. And this is actually being done well in the field of marketing, to be frank, and the main agency involved in monitoring is BPNI. Actually, IAP and NNF, I think we have to do a little bit of introspection on our part and help to implement this act in the letter and spirit. Actually, in the year 2020, with this COVID pandemic and lockdown situations coming, National Neonatology Forum in its executive board meeting in August 2020 had given clear instructions to the members of NNF as well as the editor of the journal to discourage the advertisements and promotions by the infant food manufacturers. And again, Government of India had given in a separate order, had come heavily on using the pandemic situation and conducting webinars and other activities on this background of COVID and utilizing this COVID situation by the infant food manufacturers. And again, actually, there was another important notification by ICMR also regarding the publication of few studies sponsored entirely by infant food manufacturers during this COVID period. I think actually the organizations like Indian Academy of Pediatrics and NNF, which is committed very much in the case of breastfeeding, in implementation of exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months, we have to be little more vigilant, and we have to follow this act in the real letter and spirit. And in connection with this observation of the breastfeeding protection, at Indian Academy of Pediatrics Kerala has arranged, this is the 4th program we are arranging regarding this this IMS Act for the awareness and popularization of the IMS Act among our colleagues, so that the implementation of this act will be observed in a much more better way. And I congratulate our MBFHI Plan Coordinator Dr. Anandakesavan and IAP Trivandrum for taking the initiative in arranging so many programs in connection with this. And now for today you have arranged a good panel discussion with so many authorities on this subject, and I wish the very best for this program as well as IAP Trivandrum for this wonderful initiative, and also NNF Trivandrum. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I wish the very best for the program.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. A. Santosh Kumar, President IAP Thiruvananthapuram branch, for the introduction.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the World Breastfeeding Protection Day celebration of IAP Thiruvananthapuram. Respected national leaders, Kerala leaders, Kerala President Dr. Jayaraman, branch secretary, other senior colleagues. Welcome to this meeting. The Protection Day is to compel the enforcement of IMS Act. And why we have to compel is basically because when a program is planned and it doesn't go the way it should, then there will be some act, and that is the IMS Act. And when the act is there, when people are trying to evade it or circumvent it, then comes the role of how to compel the implementation. So that is what this theme of this year is all about. And the rule basically has got two parts. One is by the words, which is basically for the lawyers. And the other is spirit, which is for the human part of it, which I give a lot more importance. Because like in all religions are very good in rules, but when we implement it by the very word of the rule, it becomes the most evil thing in the world. So the same thing should not happen with our efforts in promotion of breastfeeding. And that is the important thing that I would like this panel to discuss. And for example, there are a lot of social media talk about breast milk substitute companies utilizing the COVID situation for promoting their product. So I'll give my experience in my hospital during the first wave. We were all for breastfeeding, definitely. But then I asked my one company to give me milk powder for these babies. And the reason is, there are so many people talking about the importance of breastfeeding, and the breastfeeding is safe in COVID and all. But that doesn't work because the mother is in a emotionally separated situation, like not with their relatives or parents. And so naturally breastfeeding becomes difficult and they need support. And who's going to support? The senior fellow will say residents should do. And what will residents say? A nurse will. So it is not that possible. It's not 2 or 3 times a day. It's so many times a day. And who's going to do it? In fact, there are people who refused at that time, refused to go to COVID wards. So naturally, as an administrator, I had to take a decision, and I did this. And there was a lot of controversies on that. So my point is, we must be very, very, very baby friendly, not just breastfeeding friendly. And that is the point that I want to nail down. And let us all be baby friendly. And there are bottlenecks when we try to implement, because there is nothing 100% in any biological system. So if you say 100% breastfeeding, that means 100% in those for whom it is feasible and possible. Not that each and every one will be having successful breastfeeding. And then there can be some modification. For example, my own grandchild was given formula feed for first 3 days, and then exclusively breastfed for 6 months. And why that was given was on that particular situation that had to be done. So the flexibility and who is to decide it, and for that decision we need a lot of training. So that is what I'm stressing. The flexibility is acceptable because, as I said, in biological system there's nothing 100%. You can't say that our average lifespan is 76, so everybody will live up to 73. It's not possible. So the biological system demands flexibility, demands human approach, and this I wish this discussion address some of these areas also. And with these words, let me conclude and wish all the very best for this meeting, and please discuss how to tackle difficult situations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Dr. Anandakesavan, Chairman, MBFHI Program, IAP Kerala.
Good evening, respected President Dr. Santosh sir, Secretary Praveen, State President Dr. Jayaraman sir, Elizabeth Madam, PMC sir, George F. Moolayil sir, Dr. Rawat, Praveen Kumar, and the other senior members of the IAP family. At the outset, I would like to congratulate IAP Thiruvananthapuram, also Dr. Indumathi, for organizing a wonderful program in connection with the Breastfeeding Protection Day. Actually, the day was on May 21st, but there are so many programs on that day. That is why, that may be the reason why we are doing this on this day. Even though Kerala was announced, declared as the first baby-friendly state in the world, there are some lapses. We somewhere we went wrong. The instance of the not giving breast milk drastically fallen. NFH survey showing that 52% of mothers are giving breastfeeding to their babies. Complementary feeding also increasing, and 20% means mothers are giving artificial feeding from birth onwards. The rate of feeding artificially increasing, breastfeeding is decreasing. So some changes are there. Anyway, it is not a good trend. So that is why here the importance of the Mother and Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative Program. Revamping of our old BFHI program, we included a gynecologist, neonatologist, nurses, and the hospital management in this program. That is why it is now termed as a Mother and Baby Friendly Hospital Initiative. Our idea was to declare majority of hospitals in the state as Mother and Baby Friendly Hospital after inspection, after giving strict guidelines, everything was there. We are moving towards that point by World Breastfeeding Week, that is August 1st. But due to COVID season, we cannot go further. There are some contact tasks, everything is not possible. Now we are planning to give training for nursing students in the state, around 2,000 government nursing students and the rest of the private hospital nursing students within this month. As such, IMF had two parts. One is promotion, protection of breastfeeding. As I already mentioned, there are so many factors. Santosh sir also mentioned some genuine issues. Second thing is the IMS Act. Even though there is provision for giving punishment up to 5,000 rupees and 6 months, somehow, many times it is not materialized due to some problem, or some, whether it is problem from the side of the doctors, from the mothers. We have to take it seriously, and I also requested Dr. Ramesh Kumar, our national president, to give some more power to this rule so that more and more hospitals become. It is not compulsion by we have to do, but we have to give some more encouragement to implement the IMS. Anyway, once again, I congratulate IAP Thiruvananthapuram, also IAP Kerala for the wonderful program. I wish the program all the best. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai IAP.
Thank you, sir. Now we move on to the panel discussion. We have Dr. PMC Nair, sir, as the moderator, and Dr. George F. Moolayil, Dr. K. Elizabeth, Dr. Kristin Indumathi, and Dr. Kamala as the panelists. Over to PMC, sir.
Okay, thank you, Praveen. So, can I share the slide? Okay. Okay, so good evening, everybody, and welcome to this panel discussion on Infant Milk Substitutes Act. As panelists, we have got a good array of people. Dr. George Moolayil, good friend of mine, a well-balanced pediatrician as well as a consultant in medical law. So he is the best person for this program. And Dr. Elizabeth, all of you know, my own colleague and a professor in HOD Mugambe Medical College and consultant Anantapuri. She is a multifaceted personality and a doyen in childhood nutrition. And Dr. Indumathi, consultant neonatologist of Isuti Hospital for a long time with lots of experience. And Dr. Kamala, she is a neonatologist as well as the director board member of Anandapuri Hospital and Research Foundation, hence the right person for this panel. So we'll start the ball rolling. The first question to Dr. George Moolayil. What is IMS Act in India and its implications? Is it effective in improving breastfeeding rates in developing countries where mortality is high? And are there similar acts in other countries also? So, George Moolayil.
Sorry, can you, okay. Actually, sorry, I had a call, you know. Can you just show me the questions again?
Pardon?
Okay. Actually, okay, carry on, next. Bring the next slide. Actually, we all know the importance of breastfeeding, and we all know the harmful effect of substitutes on the baby's health. So actually, because it was recognized, the World Health Assembly, they had brought out the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitute in the year 1981, realizing the importance of promoting breastfeeding. And the idea to promote, the one way of promoting breastfeeding is discourage the other substitutes also. And this was adopted by India in 1983. Now, regarding how many countries, you know, 136 out of 194 countries who are members of the World Health Assembly, they have instituted some kind of legal measures, you know, some kind of restrictions on sale of milk substitutes. In 79 countries, they prohibit promotion of substitutes in health facilities. Now, 19 countries have banned sponsorship of professional associations. That includes India also, actually, because probably you might have seen that, you know, these companies producing milk substitutes, they are sponsoring sponsorship, saying that they are not promoting their products, food products, but they are promoting other products of their pharmaceuticals. But that is also wrong, because section 9.9, subsection 1 and 2 clearly says that any manufacturer of infant milk products should not sponsor any type of conferences. So that we should keep in mind, because I have seen many IAP branches also doing sponsorship, from getting sponsorship from them, but not about the nutrition, their milk products, substitutes, but other things. So that has to be banned. And if there is some effect, actually, we don't know, there was some increase after once this act came up. The promotion of breastfeeding went up from 36 to some around 60%. Okay.
Okay, so shall we go to the second question? Dr. Elizabeth, do you think that in spite of the IMS Act, there is increasing use of formula and infant foods? And if so, why? Many of these companies, we know they have health drinks ready-to-use infant foods? Are they really good as they claim to be? And how does it influence a mother's choice of complementary and supplementary feeding in infants and young children? Over to Dr. Elizabeth.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the organizers for this wonderful opportunity to talk on IMS Act. The answer is yes. Can you move the slide, sir? The answer definitely is that yes. In spite of the IMS Act, there is increasing use of formula and infant feeds. Why it is so? We have to sort it out, and we can call it nutrition transition, what is happening in across all the age groups and across the globe. And Kerala is a forerunner in it. The advertisements are coming, and everybody wants the best to be given to their baby. Advertisements say this is the best. The mothers are. Can you mute all others?
You may have to mute the microphones.
So, mothers, what do? They have to work, they have to study, and their baby has to be fed on something. As Dr. Santosh Kumar was telling, there are situations when there is a demand for it, and there is a ready solution available, and nobody has time and teach them about physiology, support them, etc. As he was pointing out. Then industrialization, commercialization, consumerism, increased purchasing power. Anybody can afford it. Then it is readily available, and we are little lazy also. So the nutrition transition which is happening across all age groups is affecting the babies also. And regarding the claims that they do, it is not true or scientific. And there may be some anecdotal company-sponsored trials which are telling, and these are definitely influencing the mothers. For example, see these advertisements, some of them which I have captured for you, that is health in every drop. So a mother who is thinking, oh, this enriched milk or this particular brand is going to give more health for my baby, then this increases the power of milk, and then drink the protein snack. Then for your world's #1 child, your baby is going to become world's #1 child. That is one advertisement is telling. Then another thing is that, see, they have preparation for 1 year plus, 3 year plus, even 6 year plus. So that is adding to the mother is thinking, oh, my baby is taking this company's product, and there is a product after 1 year, 3 years, 6 years. So this is coming up. Next slide. I must say that how the companies are manipulating the research. See, New England Journal of Medicine said, put up an article telling it this became very famous. Dietary fats, carbohydrates, atherosclerotic vascular diseases, and they said that it is the fat which is the culprit, and they didn't say that the sugar which is unabsorbed is going to be converted to fat and being stored. And this whole study was sponsored by the Sugar Research Foundation. Later on in JAMA, they came out with this information that this study was sponsored by the sugar industry. So that is how they manipulate. Next. And you know that this health drinks, everybody thinks that my baby is a picky eater, so balanced nutrition is not, they are not getting, and my baby's brain must be smart enough, so smart nutrients must come. That is why they go for these things. And every mother is aware of these health drinks, what to buy, more than any one of us. Next. And I must say that, next slide. See, there is an advertisement coming up from a pharmacy. If you give the order before 6 p.m., there is a free delivery if it is within so much radius, etc. And the IMS Act is now telling up to 2 years. But beyond that, as I said, up to 6 years and beyond, there are products. So we have to be very alert about all these things, and IAP has to act. And one more thing is that in the IMS Act, they say that none of the mothers should be approached. The doctors should not be approached, etc. But what about the pharmacists and the chemists? They are doing over-the-counter sales. And that is not, there is no rule which is binding to them. They can sell it. They come and ask what is the best product now. The pharmacist or the chemist or somebody who is sitting there can dispense it. And the monitoring is also very unsatisfactory. And I was just searching the net. Is there any violation of the IMS Act which was punished? I could not get any reference for that. That means the IMS Act is a toothless paper tiger. It is. I call it tiger because it is not lion. For tiger is more important for us. Next slide.
Okay, let's solve with. Shall I go to Dr. Indumathi?
Yes, sir.
Working in a city hospital for a long time, you are the best person to answer this. Even NICU, can a baby be on exclusive breast milk feeding without weight faltering? And
yes,
what I'll ask the other two questions also. What are the methods followed in mothers of preterms to improve the breastfeeding rates? And does it make a difference in preparing the mother for breastfeeding antenatally? So I would like Indumathi to talk.
Yes, sir. Can I have the slides? I think it's a big yes. A baby can gain weight without faltering even the NICU. Now, faltering doesn't mean that the initial loss in the first few days, we don't take it as faltering growth. So one should remember that the initial loss in any baby is going to be there. And we have to understand that the baby's capacity of the stomach is less, isn't it? So enough colostrum, enough EPM, enough to maintain sugars. That's all that we are worried about. I think many of us are worried about maintaining sugars, isn't it? So that is one aspect, like Santosh said, we have to be careful. But definitely, I don't think there is going to be a faltering in weight in the long run if a baby is going to be fed. And as early as possible, we should start breastfeeding. Now, skin-to-skin contact early, breastfeeding soon after birth, and bonding and early rooming in are essential for any newborn baby in a normal setup. And these things actually increase breastfeeding rates, which we have found in a lot of studies which are coming up now. But when a baby unfortunately comes to the NICU, she's separated from the mother, and the mother is anxious, she's worried, she's maybe have some illness, and there's so many other factors, and the breastfeeding comes down. So a lot of encouragement is necessary, and one has to ask for colostrum very specifically on the day one, and the express breast milk can be started to give. In case we have issues with sugars or anything, we may add formula, but definitely we can even sustain with fluids and colostrum and EBM for the first few days till the baby is able to feed, and then go for direct feedings. Now there is a new concept coming in, that is mothering in the NICU. That is, the NICU can even accommodate the mothers. So that even sick babies, they are able to be with the babies, and therefore the breastfeeding rates improve, and they're able to improve their breast milk for the mothers. Next slide. Now coming to preterms, they are a different category. We know that all of us have gone through this, but now the policy statement is very clear. All preterms should receive human milk with pasteurized donor milk rather than premature formula, the preferred alternative if a mother is unable to provide adequate volume. Why? Because the evidence is very compelling that we have very much decreased NEC, necrotizing enterocolitis, decreased rates of sepsis, late onset, ROP, and decreased rehospitalizations of these babies, improved neurodevelopmental outcomes, and the metabolic syndrome and other complications which come up later on. And the dose response effect of human milk feeding, for each 10 ml per kg per day increase in human milk in the diet, there is a 5% reduction. This is in a nutshell about the policy statement. So being aware of this, I think all doctors, staff, nurses, everybody who is dealing with mothers should have a knowledge about the advantage of breastfeeding, uses of artificial feeding, mechanisms of lactation, suckling, how to help mothers initiate, not only initiate, but sustain breastfeeding, which is very, very important, which we find we have to do, otherwise they go away. Then how to assess a breastfeed, whether it's enough, how to resolve difficulties. Hospital breastfeeding policies should change and practices should change for the better. And you should understand the negative attitudes of the family and the mother, which set up barriers to so that we will make a change. So counseling, first of all, to counsel, we should have knowledge. All of us should develop the knowledge of lactation and how it is done. The second step for a preterm which improves is expression of milk, which we have found very, very useful. All the neonatal staff and doctors should discuss the benefits of human milk when they start counseling the parents in the first day itself, and the role of maintaining an expression schedule. So this we found very, very useful. And when we talk to the mothers and the fathers, in day one itself, we start telling them that it is have to bring express breast milk, and colostrum is the first vaccine or the first antibiotic. And definitely there is a big change. You ask them to buy the pumps, they're ready. And this is what we have been following. So early, frequent and effective milk expression is crucial to the initiation of preterm lactation. It is said that if you have asked the mother to express by day 3 and day 4, and if the milk has started increasing, it also tells us that this mother is going to be feeding and expressing more milk volumes by 6 weeks to 6 months. So that is also an indicator. Now we all know colostrum is produced during the first 4 days, and it's very, very important. Now we also find for the extremely low birth weight babies, we can even paint the mouth with colostrum, which is very, very useful for the baby. Then followed by transitional milk secretion for the next 10 days, and followed by mature milk production. Indeed, mothers of very low birth weight babies have produced adequate volumes like 750 to 800 ml at 5 weeks when they've started early expression of milk. And at least 6 to 8 expressions per day is a must. Then breast massage during pumping or before pumping is very useful. And you can see the picture. Mother even at work can pump and give the milk. Next slide. Next important thing is, don't forget bonding. It is very challenging for the mother of a preemie to be away from the baby and get an emotional bonding. So we should promote bonding in the ICUs. Make the mother feel very close. Ask her to come in, give the baby in her hand, encourage her to see the baby, watch her baby's cues, spend as much time and talk to the baby, maybe give a name and change napkins or feed the baby. So these are all things we can do so that the bonding develops. And one important thing which we do is the non-nutritive sucking. And it is usually done along with the kangaroo mother care also. That the baby is allowed to simply suck at the breast so that the mother improves her breast milk rates. Next. Next slide.
Not moving.
Okay.
No, okay.
Next. So next is a very important method is the kangaroo mother care. I think many of us are aware of the importance of kangaroo mother care. It is growing in importance every day. It gives preemies warm, physiological stability of the baby, good sleep and comfort through skin-to-skin contact, which is supposed to stabilize the baby and even improve the rates of growth. And it provides opportunity for non-nutritive sucking and early breastfeeding. Now, mothers who give kangaroo care tend to breastfeed even longer and more frequently, and the breastfeeding also improves. And they become confident about caring for the babies in the hospital. And even when they take the babies home, they know what to do. It increases the mother's milk volume. Now, going to our next slide, we see a small study here in Bangladesh they have done on mothers who have been given mothers who did KMC and who did not do KMC. Now, the important thing is blue indicates exclusive breastfeeding. And we find that mothers who have done KMC, the breastfeeding rates persist or even become better. But those who have not done KMC, the breastfeeding rates are low. And formula feeding tends to increase and mixed feeding occurs. And also the feeding method, when they are followed up, in mothers who are given KMC, seems to improve the methods. Now, staff support and family support is very, very important. The staff should also ask questions of how the mother feels. You can leave a photograph of the baby in the incubator, take pictures or keep a record of the baby's changes. These all things help bonding and support from the staff. And staff should be able to handle many questions about breastfeeding and teach the mother and encourage her. Next. There's also a slide which tells us about the odds ratio. Breastfeeding practices are associated with failure of exclusive breastfeeding at this time. So here, if you start expressing later, more than 48 hours, actually the failure of breastfeeding is more. So we should start expressing even in the first day. Breast milk should be start expressing on the first day itself. and skin-to-skin contact, mother in the ICU all favors breastfeeding. And no pacifier or restricted use of pacifier or restricted use of nipple shield and weighing to tell the mother how much weight. All these things improve breastfeeding. So we are going to teach the mother, counsel the mother, give KMC, bonding, expression. These are the things which help in preterm milk production. Now, what about antenatal education? I think all of us would agree this is very important, and we should be talking to the mother about the benefits, then how we are going to initiate, importance of rooming in, and then feeding on demand whenever the baby cries, and exclusive breastfeeding, how important it is for the baby to avoid infections and increase the cognitive development, and assuring that mother will have enough milk, she should go through it. And then the risks of artificial feeding and bottles should be told in antenatal itself. And if the mother has HIV, we should talk about what to feed. Then antenatal education should not include any education on formula preparation. Here is the time when we can tell the mother about breast hygiene and nipple care. So this is a very important component, and all of us who are with mothers should be teaching them how to start breastfeeding, failure of which we are seeing in our ICUs, that the mother is not at all prepared for breastfeeding. So this is a very important aspect. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so thank you, Indumathi, for covering this area very nicely, discussing various aspects of it. Now I come back to Dr. George Moolayil, because he is the medical law consultant. What is the punishment given for not observing the IMS Act? Are there any loopholes in the IMS Act? And how can we make it more compelling and effective in the Indian situation? Do you think we should have more amendments to make it more effective? So, George.
Okay. Let me tell you one thing. First of all, any act is as good as how it is being implemented. That's the main thing. Now, regarding punishment, as Jayaraman has already said, that it is no, actually, the punishment imprisonment is up to 3 years, minimum 6 months, but up to 3 years. But in the act itself, there is one provision which has been given, where it is said that for genuine reasons, the courts can reduce it to up to 3 months imprisonment. That is also there in the act. Now, regarding fine also, it is saying not less than 2,000, but it can go up to 5,000. But there also, there is a provision where it is said that the courts can decide and can reduce it up to 1,000. So that is the punishment which is being given. But it is not a question of punishment. Actually, what is happening is that I feel that even less than 1% of the violations are being reported to the proper authority. That is the problem. We have an act, but then this is the problem. Now, regarding loopholes, actually, when Elizabeth was talking about that, about buying over the counter products, I feel that what can be done is that all these substitutes should be given only under prescription from a medical practitioner. Here, what is happening is that the mother goes to the counter pharmacy, and they said, give me some milk powder, and the shop people will do something which they prefer, they will give it like that. And there is no provision to ban that. There is no rule saying that you cannot sell it directly. So that provision should be added, in my opinion. And regarding amendments, but I have got one thing. There is one thing known as, when we started promoting BFHI in the beginning, we said no doctors will see medical representatives promoting these items, substitutes. But here in the act, it is said that they can meet the doctors, but they cannot promote it. They can just tell only the contents of their products. That is there. That is actually against what we were practicing. But that is there one provision which I feel that should be amended. Then there is another indication that we have to see. They said that it can be used if there are medical indications. If the medical personnel feel that there is an indication. So that is a broad both permission being given. Actually, it depends upon the viewpoint of the doctor. My personal experience, because I started implementing BFHI program from 12th of October 1992 after my attending a training program at Chennai. We had a 3-day living in program, training and everything. Now from 12th October 1992 till date, I had to give substitute only for one baby. That is my experience. Only one baby, because that is the cause of maternal death. Actually, the mother had died at Kottayam Medical College, and then Jayaraman said, because they were from Thodupuzha, they wanted to go home. So Jayaraman sent the baby to me, and there was no mother. At that time, we could not give. So that is all. That is my experience. Even for preterm babies, we have managed without giving any substitute. I really agree with what Indumathi was telling. And there's one more thing regarding diabetic mothers. What we have seen, I have not seen a single case of hypoglycemia in a baby of a diabetic mother, but we were very vigilant. We were periodically checking. Even when the baby was born, we checked the cord blood to assess the sugar status of the mother. If it is so, if the cord blood sugar was high, there is a more chance of the baby going into rebound hypoglycemia. So that was one thing. Then we were checking at 1 hour, 2 or 3 hours, everything. But I have not seen a single case of hypoglycemia in any of the babies of the diabetic mother. I am not exaggerating. That is my experience. Whatever hypoglycemia we are seeing is because of poor feeding due to some intracranial cause, some bleeding there. The baby was not sucking and not informed to us. There we could detect. But that is a thing. That is my experience. Regarding grandchildren, to be frank, I have got 5 grandchildren. 3 of my sons and 2 of my daughters. My daughter-in-law is a severe asthmatic. She has a very good family history of asthma. My daughter also had asthma till the age of 5 years because she was given artificial feeding during her neonatal period. That was years back, 36 years back. Anyhow, but we were very strict about my grandchildren, and none of them had any problem. All the 5, they are absolutely fine with the family history also. That's what I'm saying. That is how, if you've got the bill, you can do it. Now, this medical indication, we have to define. The Act cannot say that what are the medical indications what you can give. But I think we have to look at ourselves, our own conscience, whether we wanted to promote it, because you can always find excuses to give. That is what is happening. To be frank, many of the times where babies were given substitutes, when you go into the history, I know that absolutely there was no indication. So that loophole is there, to be frank. So that cannot be corrected with the amendments. But what I feel, because I think I'm here to talk about the law part, but I just brought in medical also in my experience. But what I'm saying is that certain things, law, as during the introduction, it was said that law should be treated in a way, whether it should be in the strictly word or in spirit. So we have to do something about that. There you cannot change the act there, but the act is quite good. But if it is any act, the failure occurs when there is not proper reporting. Because I feel in what I've seen is that even less than 1% of the violations are being reported to the authority. So there we have to correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Moolayil. So that means we should also be very proactive and try to promote breastfeeding in addition to the IMS Act. Okay, so coming back to Dr. Elizabeth, do you think BFHI revamping is absolutely necessary? And what are the reasons of decline in breastfeeding rates?
That is an interesting question. So I think that BFHI, as Dr. Moolayil was telling and Dr. Anandakesavan was telling, there is a need for revamping, and it should be a mother and baby friendly hospital initiative, as that now what we are promoting. In fact, the decline is of great concern. Actually, we say that from the NFHS 3 to 4 we improved. What did we improve? from 48% to 56%. But what about the rest of the babies? 99% is happening in the hospital, and we are unable to promote breastfeeding. Even with the BFHI in position and everybody is striving hard for that, we are unable to do it. That is because everybody is imposing their own solutions. For example, when a baby is born, how much milk the baby needs and how much milk the mother is producing. A baby, a newborn baby, by and large, they sleep for 20 hours. And they may need only 10 or 40 ml of colostrum, but we think that they need 200 ml of milk. So our idea is different, and we are trying to impose our own solutions for that. That is why it is happening. And even the staff are giving their own solutions. They know that breastfeeding is the best, but they may say that, oh, they anticipate hypoglycemia may come. And we always say that the preterm and babies and the low birth weight baby, the number is now coming down. And there we have to be very vigilant about it. And then we have to sing the song of stops, I say, that is sensorium, temperature, oxygenation, circulation, and sugars. And if we are able to detect it and anticipate, otherwise, there is a fear. All the neonatologists are afraid. If something happens, there will be a litigation against us. And another, the big chunk of reason, I must say, that there is lack of collaboration between the obstetrician and the pediatricians. And we want to implement, but the mother and the babies are under the custody of the custodian is the obstetrician, and the obstetrician will decide. And often the dyad is diverse. That is, the baby is in one area, maybe the mother is in another area. We are too busy, no time to discuss. Unscientific, misguided information is there. Even the staff are pushing their own ideas. They say, when I had this, I was doing this. That is how they do it. Whether it is scientific or not, they are not telling. And it is a societal responsibility. We should understand it as our own problem. And everybody, the dad, where is the dad? What is the role of the parent, the father, in promoting breastfeeding? Sometimes the mother-in-law is the decision maker. The father and the mother has no voice. It should not be like that. That is a preparation and counseling. By that we can do. And we can, if you develop a system, for example, within an hour is the baby breastfed. If we are starting to record, we record the urine, first urine, meconium, first cry, etc. But how many of us record the first feed? So if we start doing that, they become answerable to that. So maybe I must say that we have failed in our responsibility also. Next slide.
Okay.
And we must say that there are mom heroes across the globe who are breastfeed, who promote and support and protect breastfeeding. And it is said that mom cannot be, the God cannot be there everywhere. So moms are created, but we know the fallacy also. And I was searching some Indian hero, and the Ramya Krishnan, that is from Bahubali. She is breastfeeding, sitting on the throne. So I think that is our role model, no? So we have to promote that. Next.
Okay, it's not doing. So you have kept Rudrama Devi also. Okay.
If I am asked what is the biggest challenge, BFHI is our program. And how many days baby is staying in the hospital? Normal delivery, 2 days. Cesarean, maybe 5. And within this 2 or 5 days, can you do everything? And sustainability, everything. They have a lot of doubts. And I think someone was writing in the chat box that the mother is seeing a small baby for the first time. Maybe she has not seen a baby at all. And then who is there to support? And Government of India in 2016 started the MA program, Mother's Absolute Affection Program, for creating awareness, for participation, intervention, monitoring. But I must say that Kerala is yet to start the program. Maybe it is like that many other states also. And Rajasthan government in 2018 passed this law saying that no discharge from the hospital if the woman is unable to breastfeed, direct breastfeeding. And we find that we want to keep the mother with the baby, but the obstetrician is in a hurry to discharge because there is overcrowding in her postnatal ward, and they go home, and after some time they come back to they expect a bony baby, a very healthy baby, but they will be seeing a very malnourished baby with pricks here and there, and all malnourished and maybe fighting infections and all. So they don't develop the bonding also. That is the another problem. And next slide. So there should be a all of us should come together and work. As previously it was mentioned that the VPNI is the only one who is responsible. It is not them. All of us are responsible. And as Dr. Satish Tiwari puts it, no matter how long we have traveled in the wrong direction, we can always turn around. And I have put that blue and white symbol. That is the symbol of breastfeeding. If I ask, many of my postgraduates may not know that. That is why I put it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Elizabeth. Now coming to Dr. Kamala. Are you around, Dr. Kamala?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Being a neonatologist and on the administrative side of a corporate hospital, what is your opinion on the IMS Act and the need for formula feeds in the NICU, if any? So I'd like to hear from you, Dr. Kamala.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, Elizabeth Madam, Indu Madam, Moolayil, sir, Santosh, sir. And thank you, PMC, sir, for inviting me to play the devil's advocate. Everybody was talking for breast milk, and I'm probably on the other side. But to tell the truth, we are all 100% into exclusive breastfeeding. But as Santosh sir was mentioning, there should be some flexibility in our clinical decisions. So we can't close our eyes towards conditions or situations requiring additional supplements. But in order to prevent the overuse or misutilization of the formula supplements, what we have is we have an ironclad protocol in our department, which I'll come to later. Now, let us see where we need to deviate from our BFHI policy. So we can see that WHO and UNICEF has published this document in 2009. Sir, can you go to the previous slide, sir? In 2009. Which tells us clearly the acceptable medical reasons for use of breast milk substitutes. And we know that a few health conditions of the infant or the mother may justify recommending that she does not breastfeed temporarily or permanently. But whenever we recommend or we advise a mother to stop breastfeeding, we always need to weigh the benefits of breastfeeding against the risk posed by the presence of that specific condition listed. Sir, the next slide, please, sir. So coming to the infant conditions, where the infant should not receive breast milk or any other milk except specialized formula. So we know that in classic galactosemia, we need a special galactose-free formula. So in that condition, absolutely no breast milk or milk feed should be given, except the galactose-free formula. And other conditions like MSUD, maple syrup urine disease, and phenylketonuria. In MSUD, we need a special formula free of leucine, isoleucine, and valine. And in phenylketonuria, a special phenylalanine-free formula is needed. Here, some breastfeeding may be continued, but it should be very carefully, the baby should be very carefully monitored for adverse effects, development of seizures, yes, etc. So coming to the condition to infants, okay, breast milk remains the best feeding option, but they may need some other food in addition to breast milk for a limited period. So we know that SGA babies and preterm babies, we might end up giving some extra feeds for them when the breast milk is not adequate, or if the weight gain is not adequate, especially EBM with fortified formulas that we get. And in newborn infants who are at risk of hypoglycemia, we except other than preterm and SGA, those who had hypoxic ischemic damage, and sick babies, infant of diabetic mothers, etc. If their blood sugar fails to respond to optimal breastfeeding or breast milk feeding, we might need to give formulas for these babies. Next slide, sir. And some maternal conditions that may justify permanent avoidance of breastfeeding. So we know that HIV infection, in maternal HIV infection, If replacement feeding is acceptable, feasible, affordable, sustainable, and safe, we may recommend for them to move to complete formula feeding. But WHO recommendation also says that mother can choose, we can recommend the mothers to exclusively breastfeed, and we have to inform them the risks of mixing breastfeeding along with other formula feeds. And coming to maternal conditions that may justify temporary avoidance of breastfeeding when the mother is really sick who can't feed her infant, and HSV infection with active skin lesions when direct contact with the infant's mouth should be avoided. Then maternal medications like psychotherapeutic drugs, anti-epileptic drugs, opioids, etc., which can produce problems in the baby. Then use of radioactive iodine in the mother when there is a malignancy, thyroid malignancy. Here, the breast feeding needs to be completely avoided for 2 months after receiving radioactive iodine. In some cases, maternal wounds with iodophore application, povidone application also, this can also lead to thyroid suppression or electrolyte imbalances in the breastfed baby. And if mothers who are on cytotoxic chemotherapy also require that mother may stop breastfeeding during this while the mother is continuing this therapy. Next slide, please, sir. And in some maternal conditions, mothers can continue breastfeeding, but there might be some associated health problems which might need treatment, like breast abscess, mastitis, etc. She can continue breastfeeding in the normal breast, and while she's working on solving the problem. And in active hepatitis B or C in the mother, if the mother is having inflamed breast, cracked nipples, etc., we need to sort out that problem before we can resume breastfeeding. And maternal tuberculosis, we can continue breastfeeding, but mother and baby should be managed according to the national tuberculosis guidelines. Then substance abuse, both recreational and therapeutic drug use. This can also, if the mother is breastfeeding, it can also produce problems in the baby like drowsiness, withdrawal, narcotic withdrawal, etc. So next slide, please, sir. And there are some rare causes: maternal death, separation, oromaxillary malformations in the baby, which prevents the baby from direct breastfeeding. And the rare causes like organic causes like delayed lactogenesis 2, poor milk transfer, breast pathology, glandular insufficiency. All these reasons also, sometimes we might end up with supplements. And all said and done, we know that the best supplement is expressed breast milk. If the expressed breast milk is not available, and the second best thing will be the banked donor milk. And how to give, it is better to avoid bottles and always go for, and we all know that we have to sit with, patiently sit, the staff or doctor has to patiently sit with the mother and train them to give babies who need EBM plus HMF. When we send them home on these supplements, we need to sit with the mother and patiently teach them to give the Gogurna feeds and make sure that they are confident in Gogurna feeding before we discharge. And always, whenever we are stopping breast milk temporarily, we have the responsibility to re-establish, to give them advice how to re-establish lactation and to make them confident in breastfeeding. Next slide, sir.
Okay.
So coming to the policy that I was talking about. So in cases where we use temporarily formulas, we always make it absolutely certain that we never purchase the formula in the name of the baby and give that formula to the baby's room so that they can prepare the formula and eat. So this is only given in temporary conditions. Only the NICU staff, we prepare it in the in unit ICU feeding room and give it to the baby temporarily. And we always make sure that we counsel them regarding exclusive breastfeeding and make sure that the baby is completely off the formula at least a minimum of 24 hours. And baby is exclusively breastfed and mother is confident about breastfeeding before we discharge them. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kamala, for elaborate discussion on this issue. So most of the conditions are probably temporary only, we can circumvent that. And I probably think the only solution to avoiding formula in these situations will be use of a human milk banking. I hope somebody will discuss on that aspect also later. Human milk banking.
So the other thing is like, Kamala also knows that when we give formula, actually the doctor's prescription should be on the case sheet. I think sisters also may tend to give overdo it sometimes. So that also makes a policy in some hospitals. And like Elizabeth Madam said, we can record the first time of breastfeeding and the sugars. So these also in the institution policy, some people follow. So that will be useful for them.
I want to add one thing, sir. I must say that we must congratulate and remember Dr. Shobha Kumar, who is the neonatology head in SAT hospital. I think if formula is given, she gets a consent signed. The parent will have to inform consent that in this situation we are giving formula. You know, there is a case against a doctor who prescribed a formula. The mother gave the case and she won that case.
That's what I used to say, you know. Suppose later on the baby develops asthma also, definitely there are reports, of course, when you give artificial thing, that there is about 10 times more chance of the baby getting asthma later on. So if they file a case, my baby developed because of this only, it is very difficult to defend actually. Being a lawyer, I'm telling you, one who is defending the doctors.
That's why, sir, I think a prescription is necessary. And also maybe, as Madam said, a consent. Because nowadays then they will ask, why not donor milk? They may ask, not donor milk now, because donor milk may be available. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. Now we'll go to Dr. Indumathi. How can you alleviate the concern of a working mother in breastfeeding? Because it's a big issue in Kerala. Most of the mothers are working, and how can she prolong the breastfeeding while working?
Yes, so I think this is a very common question that mothers come back to us when they come on follow-up. Madam, I want to start bottle feeding and train my baby because I need to go back to work by maybe 3 months. You know, some people even say 6 months. So what I counsel them is, see, if you take 6 months leave, this baby is going to benefit in many ways. First thing is that your baby will have reduced infections. Second thing, the development of the baby itself is improved when you have on exclusive breast milk. So these 2 points are often being counseled to these mothers. And I also tell them, if you go to work early, maybe your baby will get sick. I have seen mothers who leave the children the daycare with bottle feeding. They come back with diarrhea and pneumonia. Often they come back. And then without any options, they come and admit. And then again, they take leave. So the employee productivity is low. Absenteeism from work is high. So these are 2 very important things that I often tell mothers to take off for 6 months, which is ideal. And then most of the places it is possible, perhaps they often ask us for a certificate also, you know, to write and give so that we have 6 months exclusive breastfeeding is ideal. So I do that also. And also the costs, often they dilute the formula so that they save the cost. So these are all contributing to the infections in the baby and now the development, then pneumonia and other things like sir said, asthma, many things happen. So if all these things are told to the mother, then they start thinking, and then most of them take leave for 6 months, which is ideal. And then I'd suggest them if they have to go part-time, maybe a few hours, express the milk, store it in the refrigerator, and whether you have enough milk, all these things can be assessed. Milk by expressing, you can know how much milk is enough there. Then you can ask the mother to keep it in the fridge and then give it to the baby by Gogarnam, not bottle feeds, because breastfeeding and bottle feeding confusion. So part-time work is what I suggest usually, or work from home. And also one more thing which I tell them is, can you take a house nearby your workplace if you can come? Because in certain countries, there is a break time for nursing mothers. So they can take a time off, they can feed the baby and come back, or they can have a private space for employees to express breast milk. So these are the solutions which I usually offer them. If they're going after 6 months, we know that they can start them at complimentary feeds. And then we can slowly give them 1 or 2 feeds, and then the mother can express milk and keep it, and the grandmothers at home can feed by Gogarnam. And how to express, how to store, all these things are discussed with the mother very clearly, so that their anxiety is off. Then, of course, we should give them at the workplace, you can provide them with pumping, breastfeeding rooms and breast milk pumping rooms, so that even refrigerators in the workplace are there. They can store it and they can bring it back. I've also heard from PMC sir, I think he told me that in places like in the US, mothers are pumping and giving it to the people who can carry it home to be given to the baby. So like Swiggy, We can also have breast milk from mothers being delivered home. So many things are possible. I think from all these talks, I think is many things are possible, and the doctors have a big role to play that go on a positive note and promote breastfeeding and protect it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Dr. George Moolayil, this very interesting area. You're always a supporter of the theory regarding formula as a cause of lactation failure. Could you explain about that? This actually from the picture you can make out, this is the fore milk, and here you get the hind milk, which is thicker and also creamy like. George Moolayil, what is your take on that?
Okay, actually, this is my pet topic, because I started this theory in the 90s itself. I still remember at one neonatology conference at Trivandrum, I think it was held at Chaitanya. I was talking about this fore milk syndrome. And after the talk, Dr. Anil Nair, the HOD of neonatology at PEH Chandigarh, I think, at that time, he said, George, can I borrow this term? This fore milk syndrome. So that is my favorite topic actually, because, and let me tell you one thing, this is not applicable in the hospital setup actually, because this is applicable only after the lactation has been established. Not in the initial stage when the baby is after delivery, you have to feed every time so that you increase the production of the milk. Each feeding, produces more lactin and then produces more milk. So that is the situation. Now, once the baby has gone home, after maybe 15, 20 days, 1 month, etc., etc., these things happen. Probably it is because of our fault only. Because now, can you bring the first one? Just fore milk. Yeah. Now, this happens because we are given an advice that, feed the baby whenever the baby is crying. But that was for the hospital setup actually. We forget the fact that the baby can cry for many other things other than hunger alone. So that is what happened actually. So now to understand this problem, we have to know what actually PMC has already shown the picture of both fore milk and hind milk. The fore milk is containing sugar, protein, water-soluble vitamins, and water-soluble mineral. Whatever is present in the water, what is being, we know about B and C. They are water-soluble vitamins, so they are present in the fore milk. Whereas the fat portion will be containing vitamin D, E, etc. So this is the situation. Now, next slide. This is the hind milk, which contains fats, fat-soluble vitamins, and also helps in the synthesis of vitamin D. That is okay. Now, what I am saying is that the initial first 10 minutes at least, what the baby will be getting will be the fore milk. After that, only the baby will be getting the fat. The fat portion is the one which contains a lot of calories. We know that the calorie value of fat is 9. So for calories, fat-soluble vitamins, etc., the baby has to get the hind milk also. That means to have a complete feeding, the baby has to get both fore milk and hind milk. For that, the baby has to be really hungry. Next slide. See, this is my favorite slide actually. What is happening nowadays? We are told the mothers or grandmothers that you feed the baby whenever the baby is crying. So what happens? The baby will be crying frequently. So what happens? When the baby cries frequently, it will be fed frequently. And we know as human beings that when we take food frequently, we may not be able to take much at a time. So what happens? The baby will be taking only very short feeds. So that baby will be getting only the fore milk. Very, very, very little of hind milk actually. And fore milk, we know that it contains a lot of lactose. So this lactose goes to the gut where it is acted upon by the lactase enzyme. And whatever enzyme is there may not be able to cope up with the entire carbohydrate or lactose which the baby is getting. So what happens? It gets passed on to the colon where it is acted upon by our gut bacteria. So there is a fermentation, abdominal distensions will be there, and the baby will be crying again. We know we have read in the textbooks that whether there is any lactose intolerance what happens? You do the breath test for presence of hydrogen. So like that, there is a permanent abdominal distension and the baby will be again crying. And the baby is actually crying not because of hunger. So again, the baby is being fed and it will be taking a very short period. So some elderly person like the grandmother will be telling, no, see, the baby is crying always, even in spite of your feeding. So then they will go for artificial milk. And they ended up getting artificial milk. That is what is happening in our setup nowadays. This is happening at home. And sometimes they may go to a doctor and say that, doctor, I don't have enough. Mother will be saying that I don't have enough milk. So what should I do? And the doctor may not be having the time to explain all these things. So he may prescribe a form of substitute. Now, I had seen many babies like that who were already on substitute when they came to me. The only question I used to ask them was, when your baby was on exclusive breastfeeding, how many times the baby was passing urine? And inevitably the answer is, Malayalathil njan paraya, ente doctor adu kuda nappy maatane neravullu. That means I asked them only one question. That means the baby was getting sufficient fluid, but unfortunately there was a misconception that the baby was crying because of lack of milk. So this is my explanation. So what I always suggest that you have to wait, give sufficient time in between the feed, so that the baby should be really hungry. If you go, I will give you one homework. If you go and refer the physiology textbook, the emptying time of carbohydrate, emptying time of protein, and emptying time of fat, there is a marked difference between the two. So the stomach has to be totally empty. Then only the baby should feed the entire. Then only the baby will be feeding the entire thing. That is my theory, and I have seen that it is very successful.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. It's a very common situation. Thank you. So we go to Dr. Elizabeth. It's a pet topic also, salt and sugar in foods.
Can I add one more thing? Yeah. Actually, when I gave a talk at the national conference at Delhi on breastfeeding, many pediatricians came to me and remarked, sir, this was what was happening. We couldn't understand what was happening. Thank you for explaining all these things. Thank you.
Okay, so salt and sugar in foods are the main basis of food fats in children. What is the recommendation infants in the newer guidelines? And also we all know that Dr. Elizabeth is one of the exponents of the JUNKS acronym that has been published in Indian Pediatrics. Can you just enlighten us on that also, Dr.
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Previous slide, I'll come to this later. Previous slide. Salt, babies have taste buds. And it is there, it is said that they swallow the amniotic fluid and they know it. And many mothers come and say, my baby likes breast milk. The baby is not accepting the that is because the breast milk is more sweet. So the taste buds are already there, but most of it may be evolving. They say that the salt taste may be coming later, maybe around 8 months or so. And what is our idea? Our idea is to promote to family pot feeding. But we know that added salt and added sugar are not needed. And once they are super tasters, their taste buds are very close by on their tongue, unlike ours, which is far away. So they are super tasters. If you give them lot of sugar, lot of salt, and train them like that, they will adapt it in their future life also. So we don't want it to be in moderation. But I think that no added salt, no added sugar should be our idea. And sugar has got even half of it is sucrose, and sucrose is not good for the liver also, no? Fatty liver and all that comes, and it can even damage the liver. So, but family pot feeding is our idea. So we may be giving it with moderation. No added salt, no added sugar. I won't exclude salt and sugar from the baby's diet. That is my take on it. And coming to the JUNKS acronym, myself and Dr. Next slide, Dr. Indumathi was also there with me in making this paper. And next slide. And we are very happy that we put it across to the government, and many other bodies were also telling. And now in CBSE schools, no more junk foods in schools. But they diluted the law, I must say. We recommended that it should not be sold in the school canteen or 150 meters around, but they diluted it to 50 meters. The industry was strong enough to influence the lawmakers. Next slide. Next slide. So the junk stands for, J is for the junk food. And many people used to ask, what is junk food? There is a definition, HFSS, that is high in fat, high in salt, high in sugar. This definition has been accepted by the Delhi High Court also. So any food which is high in salt, high in fat, high in salt, high in sugar, and low in micronutrients, protein and fiber is a junk food. And we know what we buy as a prepared food, most of it is junk food. And U stands for the ultra processed food. The more processed you make it, the shelf life increases, but it is not in its innate form. And it is losing most of its properties and is acquiring some harmful things because we add processors, additives, etc. And more trans fat is there in the processed food. Anything which comes in packet. That is why we say even biscuits we don't promote, because it is a packet food with a longer shelf life. Then nutritionally inappropriate, that is N, that is giving tea and coffee, caffeine containing health drinks, etc. for smaller babies, etc. And the health drinks, I must say that you must read the label. To get 10 gram of protein, the baby is getting 50 gram of sugar, 25 gram of fat, and 10 gram of protein plus lot of chemicals. Then C is the carbonated, caffeinated, colored beverages. Caffeine is in large quantities is not good for our CNS and CVS. And then sugar sweetened beverages, including a fruit juice. In a fruit juice, it is less than 25% sugar, fruit. If it is a fruit drink, that is wrong. Fruit juice is 100% fruit, 90 to 100% fruit, but nectar is 60%, and fruit drink, we are buying fruit drink thinking that it is fruit juice. And in most of the fruit drinks, there will be 6 to 20% sugar, they say, in 200 ml. Next. And labeling, there is a law. It is under the FSSAI Act. That is, if misbranding or misleading advertisement, 3 lakh to 10 lakh rupees fine can be there. In UK, there is a law saying, Natasha law, everything should be written in what the people can understand. Ajinomoto, they may write some code numbers. That is not possible. And FSS and someone, Dr. Abiram has written in the chat box that these IMS preparations are available in the supermarket. And because that is not under the drug controller, and it is under FSSAI, it is a food product. And a food product to be banned or some action has to be taken, it's very difficult. We have to prove that someone died because of that. Next slide. And there are certain, and prohibiting the toys with the packet foods. There is law regarding this, but many people are still doing it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Iswath. Actually, what you said is very true. Even my grandchild always wanted to get the Kinder Joy. The reason is there's a small toy inside. So they are all being, what you call, hijacked.
Advertisement, we think that they are all such big toys. But it is such a minute thing when they get...
Useless toy inside that. Okay, so thank you all the panelists for the nice discussion. I'll try to conclude in 5 points. One, the IMS Act bans all forms of promotion of formula and infant foods up to 2 years of age. That is very clear. The IMS Act is very clear. And the violation of IMS Act is a criminal offense and is punishable, including imprisonment. Who reports, what is reported and all is another issue. Then we also know, Elizabeth also had mentioned that 2019-20 National Family Health Survey data on exclusive breastfeeding less than 6 months. In Kerala, I was surprised, is only 55.5%. So while enforcing the IMS Act, as Dr. Santosh also had his problems, he was saying, simultaneous steps we should take to initiate, promote, support, and sustain breastfeeding. Here comes the role of the lactation counselor. I think in every hospital we should train some. We don't want specialized people. We can train a few volunteers or nursing staff or somebody like that and train them as lactation counselors. Your latch score is very good, and of course family support, which may not be there in most of the nuclear families. And of course BFHI and BPNA have to work more rather than making speeches. Probably they should get into the community, into the hospitals and work more, then only you get simultaneous results. And of course say no to junks in toddlers. Okay, so thank you very much. If we can have 5 minutes or 10 minutes for an open discussion. Some of the audience may have some good ideas also, some pertinent points. If Abhiram is there.
Dr. Sri Prasad is there. I think he has some points.
Okay. Anybody wants to make some comments?
I think the lactation course is on, sir. Now in Kerala also they have started training this lactation nurses are being trained. I hope
Yeah.
courses
Yeah.
that MBFHI is starting actually, but because of COVID, they're not able to finish it. But they're going to train nursing students. That's what Anandakesavan sir said.
Yeah, in Gokulam Hospital, we were using the developmental therapist as a breastfeeding counselor also.
And also, so the latch score also is very useful. As a policy, we have also started using to assess the mothers. And if they're faulty, we ask them to come back and we follow them up. In fact, because of the COVID times, we are finding that mothers are not coming for follow-up. And those babies are actually having weight loss. So there's a lot of follow-up and encouragement, which will help us. I think it's not a one-day affair. It's quite a long affair. That is where we lose heart. You know, the sustainability is the problem. That's what I find.
I think there are a lot of models of telephonic consultations giving a lot of support to mothers. There definitely should be because of COVID, they cannot come, but there should be telephonic and video calls.
Yes, it's happening.
Chat, all those things can be very useful.
Madam, they're even afraid to go take even a weight within the nearby hospital. That is another issue also.
And I'm sure that as Dr. Kamala was saying, we should spend more time for explaining the breastfeeding problems where they have, they help them out. And with that only will improve the breastfeeding rates. Otherwise, they may do it in the hospital. Once they reach home, they will switch on to formula feeds, which is very easy.
Regarding the anti-epileptic drugs, Kamala?
Yes, ma'am.
Something Sri Prasad was asking about anti-epileptic drugs, no?
Yeah, all the common anti-epileptic drugs are compatible with breastfeeding. Only the newer drugs, because of lesser evidence, you have to be a little bit more careful and definitely contraindicated. I have written ethosuximide and the diazepam, clonazepam, etc. And like the sister was saying, it gives us definite happiness and satisfaction. When we spend so much time with them in the OPD, and we can convert them. Some babies, when they're born in other hospitals, come to us already on breastfeed, 2 or 3, already on formula feeds. They might be giving 2 or 3 formula feeds a day. But when we really counsel them, and when they come back and when we can convert them into full exclusive breastfeeding, that gives us a lot of happiness also.
Yes, yes.
And we think that is a time well spent, both the effort.
Very true.
Sir, ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ ഒരു എക്സ്പീരിയൻസിൽ ഈ ബാക്കി വരുന്ന ഫോർമുല ഫീഡ്സ് വീട്ടിലേക്ക് കൊടുത്തു വിട്ട് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അവർ വീട്ടിൽ പോയി കൊടുക്കില്ലേ?
We don't send home on artificial feeds.
അതെ സർ, നമ്മളെ അവരുടെ പേരിലേ വാങ്ങിപ്പിക്കില്ല. അവരുടെ പേരിൽ വാങ്ങിപ്പിച്ചാലല്ലേ അവരുടെ മുറിയിൽ കൊടുക്കേണ്ട ആവശ്യം വരുള്ളൂ. അതുകൊണ്ട് അവരുടെ പേരിൽ വാങ്ങിക്കത്തില്ല, ചാർജ് ചെയ്യത്തുമില്ല. ആകെ വളരെ കുറച്ചല്ലേ നമ്മൾ ഈ ടെമ്പററി യൂസിന് എടുക്കുന്നുള്ളൂ. അതുകൊണ്ട് കൊടുക്കത്തുമില്ല. അതുകൊണ്ട് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അതൊരു എക്സ്ക്യൂസ് ആണ്. വീട്ടിൽ ചെന്നിട്ട് അവിടെ വെച്ച് കൊടുത്തിരുന്നു, വീട്ടിൽ ചെന്നപ്പോ ഇനി നമുക്ക് കൊടുക്കാം എന്നുള്ളത് അതൊരു എക്സ്ക്യൂസ് ആയിട്ട് അവരെടുക്കും. അതുകൊണ്ട് ടിന്ന് വീട്ടിൽ കൊടുത്തു വിടുന്ന പരിപാടിയേ ഇല്ല. മാത്രമല്ല formula feeds minimum of 24 hours, and we have to give them lots of confidence. Kind of formula ഒന്നും വേണ്ടല്ലോ, ഒന്നും ഇല്ലാതെ തന്നെ വെയിറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ, പാല് കുടിക്കുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ, യൂറിൻ ഔട്ട്പുട്ട് ഓക്കെ ആണല്ലോ, ഇതെല്ലാം പറഞ്ഞ് അവർക്ക് കോൺഫിഡൻസ് ഒന്ന് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ട് ഞങ്ങൾ സാധാരണ വിടാറുള്ളൂ. ഇൻ ദ റയർ ഈവൻ ദാറ്റ് വി ആർ ഗിവിംഗ് ഫോർമുല ഫീഡ്സ് ഇൻ ദ ഹോസ്പിറ്റൽ എന്തെങ്കിലും കാരണങ്ങൾ കൊണ്ട്.
I have an experience to share, that is in SAT hospital. When the mother and baby program came, the delivery became cashless, no? So everything had to be given by the hospital. And there was lot of pressure on me as a superintendent to buy formula for babies, preterm babies, as well as infants of diabetic mothers. Then I said, I will buy and give it to the nursery. And he asked, Dr. Kamala was telling, from there you can take and give, but yes, I am not going to buy for them, because every medicine, including surfactant, was given, started being given free at that time. It was cash. Let me tell you, no, everything we had to buy and give.
Let me tell you one thing. Probably the seniors will be remembering, because during the late 80s and before the BFHI came into practice, this food producing companies used to give to the private hospitals, I don't know, maybe private hospitals only, this food products at 50% of the MRP which is written there. The idea was for the hospitals to get attracted because of the 100% profit which they will be getting by selling this thing to the mothers. And one more thing they used to say is that once the baby goes from the hospital, let them buy from the pharmaceutical companies, I mean shops. Don't give it to them from the hospital. You know, so the idea was, once the mother sees that this is the brand which the doctor is preferring, then they will buy from outside. That was one way of promoting. Now that has been banned by IMS Act. And I asked them, then why don't you give it to the orphanages? Because there is no mother there, they can't breastfeed. Then he said, no, sir, our company doesn't have any provision to give to the orphanage. So this was the idea. So this was happening at one time. Of course, it has been banned by the IMS Act. I'm just telling you. I think the Dr. Elizabeth will be knowing all these things. No, this was there.
Praveen, I think.
No, sir. Then Praveen is gone, so I will just give a word of thanks, sir, before we go. So, yes, ma'am. Anything else?
It is 9 o'clock. I'm telling.
Yeah. So again, so let me give you all say thanks. Respected Jayaraman sir, Professor Santosh Kumar sir, Anandakesavan sir, Dr. Praveen and Dr. A.K. Rawat. Thank you for sparing your time to be with us today. And I'm so glad the two people like Dr. Praveen and Dr. Rawat also joined from all the way there. So indeed, it's a big pleasure. Especially thank PNC sir and all the panelists. So you took a lot of pain to prepare the questions, and all the panelists, Dr. George, Dr. Elizabeth, Dr. Kamala, to join for a very important actually and relevant dialogue today on IMS Act and infant feed. And thanks for all the words of wisdom from the seniors. Thanks to Praveen, our secretary, who arranged everything, and Radhika, actually, she's on duty, our NNF secretary, and all the colleagues who have joined to make this meeting a very fruitful discussion. I think we have so many questions, and some of them will be answered. You're free to talk to us anytime, or we have the WhatsApp also now. So thank you, everybody. Thank you all the seniors and juniors who joined us. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Praveen Vanna.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Indumathi madam, Kamala madam, Elizabeth madam, PMC sir, George sir, Sri Prasad. Thank you.